listen.
Never in my life associated the word boring with baseball.
We know what's up.
Me? Yeah. Famous? Yeah.
And I'm like giddy over there smiling like, we're about to win this shit.
Did everyone give you crap? Give me a good host story.
I'm not picking it up.
We both love the game.
We talk about it every day.
Getting on baseball.
Having some popcorn, you're fooling around your phone.
I'd have to wait in line for 3 hours.
Hang on, because it's about to be a wild ride.
All right, Pitch and Moan. We are back. I am your host, Courtney Finnicum. And I am pleased to be back with the great Jonny Gomes. Jonny, how are you doing?
Right on schedule. How about that year, huh? 2024 in the books, a little Thanksgiving, a little Santa, and then boom, right back into it.
Literally. I mean, we don't really have that much time to chill because right around the corner is going to be winter meetings, which, I mean, we are set for, I think, kind of a roller coaster ride of some offseason moves here.
Yeah.
I feel like we need to just kind of jump right in it because there's a lot to get to. But it's good to see you. How are you enjoying your off season so far?
So far, so good. Scottsdale, Arizona. So I got the Arizona Fall League out here. So these young pups running around there. I mean, I'll tell you what, a lot of scouts. Of course, they're watching their own guys. And then those are all the trade bait. That's all the trade bait that's out there.
That's it.
So, and then, like you mentioned, the winter meetings coming up. And if you remember in the beginning, of the offseason last year, why the market was so slow. And I thought, one of my comments was, I think it's so slow because the 2025 class is so stacked. And here we are.
I absolutely did think that because as I'm going through my notes for our lovely podcast, I'm going, oh man, Jonny nailed it. These are some marquee names that are out and that are ready to be signed. And that's why I think it's the off season, but there really is no off season in the baseball world, especially when you have over 100 free agents on the market and some huge names. And let's just get right to it because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So as we've been saying, huge names on the market, obviously the biggest being Juan Soto right now. Everyone is into the Juan Soto sweepstakes. You're hearing about the Mets, you're hearing about the Yankees, you're hearing about the Red Sox giving this 3-hour presentation yesterday. There is a lot going on when it comes to that. With that being said, as a former player, how is this process for you? I mean, you've been through free agency several times. How is this work as a player in your mind?
Well, there's not many opportunities that you have to hit the free agency market, right? This is probably going to be Juan Soto's first and last. Same with Ohtani, right? There's some of these other guys where it seems like you're a free agent every single year. Snell just went through it. Montgomery just went through it. Chapman went through it, and then boom. So, I mean, that's the ideal, is to make it there and to not go there again. But we did have some hiccups on the pitching side and then Chapman on the short end. But I think which is really good is what Ohtani's contract did and how much it paid back. And it got him a title. And it seems like 700 is almost a bargain, right? So there's both sides of it. And I think Juan Soto is capitalizing at the perfect time after Ohtani going 50-50, winning a championship, and money well-deserved. And again, the structure of that contract, right, with all the deferred. So I'm real curious to see how these contracts get structured.
And that, I think, is going to be the key, too, because, not just talking about Juan Soto, but there is another level to stars that are available. Corbin Burns comes to mind. He was the ace of that Orioles, staff this year that he pitched extremely well in that game, in the wild card game for the Orioles. That didn't really help the Orioles, unfortunately. But that's a guy that is probably going to guarantee some serious cash this coming off season. So with that being said, how is the perspective if you're a Juan Soto or you're a guy that's still kind of trying to hang on and trying to get that 1-year deal and hoping to still stick with the big leagues? How does that change your mentality a little bit from the superstar to the guy still trying to hang on?
Yeah, well, which is unfortunate is, it really is like a pyramid effect, and you got to wait for the big dogs to fall just so these other organizations can be like, oh, we were in on Juan Soto. We didn't get him, but boom, we got Christian Walker and Max Fried, right? So it does suck that you do have to wait, but that's it. It's a results-driven industry. But yeah, sometimes, when you go into Christmas and you're technically unemployed and you go into the new year and you're unemployed and you're getting close to February and you're unemployed, but it's going to work out for all these guys, and all these guys are going to land on their feet. And like we mentioned, going into last offseason, there's a lot of talent, and there's a lot of organizational changing talent that's on the market right now.
And that's another very good point. But I think, a lot of organizations were digging their heels with some of these big free agent signings in years past because they felt like these huge contracts had to be paid out right away, right? The Shohei Ohtani deal really changed things on how we structure these superstar contracts. So like you said, organizationally, how these contracts are structured, that's going to be really something to pay attention to moving forward, especially with these big names.
Yeah, and it jumps out to me as I look at a team like Seattle, right?
Yep.
Let's go out and get like 4 of these big names and give it a 2-3 year run, and then just give them all opt out, right? Because if it doesn't work like in 2-3 years in Seattle, they're gonna have to blow that thing up, right? But they are real close. So I'm also paying attention to those opt outs. It did just work for Garrett Cole. He had that opt out, boom, that lasted about 24 hours. So that again worked out for the players. So I'm just really curious to see what agency, right? It's the agents that get smart and the player that agrees to it. And I think we're going to see some real unique contracts.
And I'll be curious too, because we saw this last offseason, a guy like a Blake Snell, a Jordan Montgomery, they were unemployed past spring training. They were, and these are 2 talented arms that certainly teams could have used, but going through that and realizing, like you said, okay, now it's New Year's Day and I'm still unemployed. How do you stay sharp as a player going through that, knowing, okay, it's going to happen. I got to stay patient. How do you stay sharp knowing that you could easily be up until spring training without an actual deal in place?
Yeah, it is wild going through the free agency market because you don't get a hit. You don't strike anyone out. You don't get out. You don't win up a run all offseason. But yet your market goes like this and goes like this and going all over the place. And you're like, I'm not even playing right now. How's my market changing? But, as soon as someone's sitting on this lefty or that lefty, boom, there's a trade, right? That total changes the whole thing. There's a lot of prospects out there. You want to look at Boston for the first time in a long time, has prospects, and there's a bunch of arms out there. So I think the winter meetings is going to be wild this year. It really is down there. And I think it's in Dallas.
It is in Dallas, yes. And there's, like you mentioned, trades. Certainly a lot of rumblings in Chicago about Garrett Crochet being traded. Red Sox were mentioned in that trade as well as someone that could be interested because of the prospects that they have. So seeing these moving parts, and not just with free agent signings, but also with some huge trade pieces, it's going to be a fun time, I do believe.
Yeah, when you talk about like Crochet, like what does it take to get him? Does it take 4 prospects? Or does it take $100+ million for like a Max Fried or a Snell? 100+, of course. So like, what is your team value? Does it value your prospects for the long term, or you're able to open up, the checkbook and get them now and add them to your prospects? So I think all 30 teams are going to have a different strategy. I think there's a lot of teams in the mix. San Fran's going to be in the mix. They need some help. They've come up short a couple of times. Toronto's in there. We were talking about Pittsburgh for a while. If they were able to add something to a Skeens and a Jones, we'll see what they do. There's a lot of really good teams. Of course, San Diego, and then Philly. Philly got their hearts ripped out, right?
Sure did.
They got their heart. What are they gonna do? I don't know, but I'm gonna sit back and watch, and it's gonna be awesome.
Yeah, because Phillies on paper this year were arguably the best team in the National League. You could even say in all of baseball they were the best team.
Yep.
So the fact that they just completely laid a dud in the playoffs, you would think they were going to be an aggressive team moving forward here for 2025.
Yeah, and then the same division, you got the Atlanta Braves that are getting guys back within, right? Because they had so many injuries. So they're just getting guys come within. And then a little sneaky signing here and there in a trade is Anaheim. Washington over there doesn't want to finish last every year, so they can go get him some help. Not a bad place to play by any means. So, I think for the first time, there's a lot of teams involved, and there's some teams I'm paying attention to. It's been a while since Boston's made the splash. I think their last couple splashes, obviously signing Devers within, but have been trades. You lost Bogarts and you lost Mookie, traded Snell away, and then he goes and gets the Cy Young. So I'll be curious to see what those moves are over there. And then Chicago, right? Your White Sox. I mean, They got to make up about 60 games just to get in the mix.
Yeah, and they obviously just hired Will Venable, which we're pretty, there's some good rumblings about him out here. Smart guy, Princeton grad, has certainly worked under some impressive people, including Theo Epstein.
Yeah.
He's got an impressive resume. So there is a little bit of hope there, but how do they make up those 60 games? Will Venable is not a miracle worker, right?
Sure.
So what are they going to do? How are they going to shake up, that foundation of the Luis Roberts and the Garrett Crochets and guys that they could potentially move and maybe just completely refocus that organization, which desperately needs it, obviously.
Yeah, we'll see. And then both central divisions, NL and AL, I think are wide open, right? I think pretty much if you're in the NL Central or the AL Central, you're going to spring training with a chance of winning that thing. You still are. Obviously, the Brewers, they had a phenomenal year, and that was down the stretch without Yelich. And by trading away their ace in the offseason, we'll see how they reload. But, all 8 of those teams, I think, are going to be in the fight. The White Sox need a little help. But everyone else in the Central, I think, are going to go to spring training thinking they have a chance, which is great for baseball.
And I agree. And we saw that certainly with these wild card matchups, right? We saw the Tigers sneak in after they had an incredible run, got in, made some noise, eliminated the Astros. That third wild card spot now really changes how teams go to market in free agency. So to your point, there's a lot of teams that are wide open for a potential push. You mentioned the Central divisions, the Cincinnati Reds, who just hired Terry Francona. There's been talk a couple of years about, them finally putting a team together with their young talent, with Ellie De La Cruz and everybody else that they have, in that core, India.
Yep.
So there is definitely some room for teams to get potentially creative with this free agent period.
And the team, whether you go in the front door or the back door, all you got to get into the playoffs. Now is the Detroit Tigers.
That's it.
They're like, don't forget about us. We went to the playoffs. We're going to hang a banner, opening day. So we'll see what they do. And of course, they got Javi Baez right there. It didn't, helped him out when he went down, unfortunately for Javi. But does he get moved? Does he stay? Does he move positions? He's making a lot of money. I don't know.
So let's dig into the free agents a little bit. Some interesting free agents that are out there besides Juan Soto. We've been talking Juan Soto to death. Let's talk about Sasaki from Japan.
Yeah.
Do the Dodgers do the ultimate and sign him? Yeah. I mean, that is going to be very interesting how that all plays out. Who gets involved in that scenario? But right now, as of mid-November, it looks like the Dodgers are the front runners for him, which will be absolutely incredible. And I think we saw in this particular World Series that they were short a pitcher or two, and they still managed to win the whole damn thing. What happens now if they sign Sasaki? Are we finally going to get another back-to-back World Series champion? I think there's a good shot. There's
a great shot. And it was baffling to me, but they did do a great job, is how you can have that payroll and you're running a bullpen game 4.
Oh, right? Yes.
Which is wild.
I had so many debates about this. I don't even think it should be allowed in the playoffs. Right. Okay.
Right.
But they did an amazing job. Their bullpen stepped up. It was great. But to your point, I agree with you. Continue.
Yeah. So they do need some pitching, of course. And I think we might go through this every offseason. Like, where's Mookie going to play?
Right.
Because he's that good everywhere. Is he going to play second? Is he going to play short? Is he going to play right? Is he going to be center? I mean, this is a $350 million utility player. But what you're going to get is that bat. You're going to get the bases. You're going to get a leader. So where are they going to put him determines on what offense. But pretty much everyone needs an arm, right? No one's going to say no. Atlanta's going to say yes. Philly's going to say yes. Toronto's going to say yes. Seattle, if they got another one, watch out. And a couple of bats, watch out. But, which is really cool is a lot of teams are in play, and there's some really good ball players in the top 12. And then again, you go 12 to 20. That 12 to 20, are they a bargain? I don't know. But there's some really good ball players down there as well.
Well, there's a player that I feel is overshadowing Juan Soto or overshadowed by Juan Soto at the moment. And that is Anthony Santander of the Orioles. This guy put up 44 home runs, 102 RBIs, really the heart and soul of that young Orioles team. I see a team like a Seattle, who we've mentioned a couple times today, who are so desperate for bats, so desperate for offense, that have that nasty pitching staff and bullpen. I think that would be a wonderful fit for them. A guy with legitimate pop, get him in there, get some life to that offense. But I feel like he had this monster year and he's being overshadowed by some of these quote unquote household names.
Yep.
And I'll be interested who signs him, because I think they're getting a pretty good ball player overall there, and certainly a monster year in 2024. His contract year, the ultimate dream, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm biased to guys that put up numbers in the AL East, because you're going against like a big division every single night out there. And maybe you're not in the Juan Soto sweepstakes, but what if you're able to get him and you could back it with a Gold Glove power guy and Christian Walker? I mean, if you could just literally add a 3 and a 4-hole guy, like Seattle could go get both those guys, right? 100%. So I think those guys are going to go real close to the same contract wise. And then Christian Walker, I think, is getting oversight too. I mean, you got a Gold Glove first baseman, which are tough to come by, and a guaranteed 30 homer season. I really like that guy. He did work in the playoffs 2 years ago, I guess it would be. And what a great dude. I mean, wherever he lands, some team's going to be really happy.
And you saw him up close and personal in Arizona every day. So you knew the value that he has. And I agree. He is another guy that's being overshadowed.
Yeah.
Another interesting storyline in free agency. Does Alex Bregman finally leave the Astros? It'll be weird to see him in a different uniform.
Yeah, it will be. I go back to when the Giants were making their run, and they did find a way to bring all their guys back, right? They did. I mean, the Brian Wilsons, the Pandas, although he left at the end, the Canes, the Brian Wilson, the Buster Posies. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll see where his market is, but he's a hell of a ball player. And I really think he would want to finish his career with Altuve right there.
Yeah.
Right? They would Correa go, but it seemed like there were some injury talks about his hip or this or that kind of went the other way. Could possibly be a trade trip there too. I mean, he's got, not too many years left on his contract. See if he moves. But I would like him to see there. I think it's really cool to start and finish your career, which is rare these days.
Sure is.
But whoever gets him, again, is getting 30 homer power with gold on the corner.
Exactly. And, touching on that subject about potential reunions with teams, who else do you see potentially re-signing with their team from 2024?
I'd like to see Max Fried go back to Atlanta. He's a unique guy. He kind of just like hangs out, and then you look up and it's the 7th inning, and he's kind of just cruising around, and then he's like at another all-star game. And I mean, Max Fried, I don't know if I'd call him a sleeper, but he is good, man. I would hate to be Atlanta to let him go and have to face him in the division or somewhere else. I'm sure Philly would love that arm. I could see that arm playing up in Toronto too. Left-handers do really good, in the AL East, a lot of power in the AL East, so shut them down. But I think his market is going to be sneaky big.
2 other guys that I would sort of like to see them stick with their 2024 team. Walker Buehler of the Dodgers, only because he really came through the clutch in the playoffs this year. I mean, he was, I had my doubts. Every time he came in, I'm like, oh, I'm getting ready for the potential implosion. But he really, really showed up when he needed to. So I think it'd be cool to see him come back with the Dodgers. And then, honestly, Juan Soto back with the Yankees. I think we saw in that series that lineup kind of died, for after Stanton. So I feel like the Yankees kind of need Juan Soto now. And I feel the fans would definitely re-embrace that, of course. But they need that lineup to be kind of put back together. And Juan Soto at the top, I mean, that really solidified that lineup. So I'd like to sort of see that happen just because it is a good fit.
Yeah.
But, at the end of the day, over 100 free agents are going to be signed at some point.
Yep.
And it'll be a fun ride to see where that all kind of shakes out.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, there's a little rumblings about it, but for Juan Soto to possibly go back to Washington, too, right? Where it all
Yeah.
started, right?
Yeah.
Where it all started. I mean, they traded him away, so now you get him back with the pieces that got traded away to San Diego. That'd be pretty unique. But man, it's going to take a lot of money. Man, it's going to take a lot of money.
Well, and you make an interesting point about the Nationals too, because the Nationals are a team that has a solid young core that doesn't really get talked about enough because they're buried in that powerhouse NL East with the Phillies and the Braves and even the Mets. They're kind of buried in that division, but that could be a sneaky team in 2025, especially if they potentially sign some veterans. That could be a team that makes the next big leap. I could see that. Yeah,
and I mean, I just think Soto holds all the cards, right? I think whatever it is, whether from 600 is going to start, 700 at the high end, but it's just going to come down to where he wants to go because everyone's going to welcome him with whatever he wants. And if he goes to San Fran and says, I want this, San Fran's going to give it to him. If he wants to go play with Vlad up in Toronto, we'll see. I think he holds all the cards as deserved at a 25-year-old free agent with his resume. So I think it's just wherever he wants to go, he's going to fit in perfect.
And we've seen this before, too. Once the Juan Soto chip falls, they'll all start to kind of fall.
Yeah.
And I think it'll happen pretty quickly in the next few weeks here. I think we'll start seeing some action. And as always, we'll be pitching and moaning about it at some point.
Yeah, we are. I mean, there's some big names out there. I mean, you could legitimately get a 1, 2, and 3 to overhaul. There's some sneaky bats down there. I think these organizations are going to value these bats a little different, but yeah, there's some players out there. Willy Adames at short, I think his market is going to skyrocket. I think agree. San Francisco and LA in play for that as well. I think there's some other shortstops that would move to second to be able to have him. I think he's going to get a huge contract.
Very, very good call out about Willy Adames. Yeah. I agree with you. That will be another interesting move there. And I think whoever does end up with him will be very happy with that signing. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're looking at 170, 200 for that guy. And can Milwaukee get that? I don't know. But shortstops right now, 30 teams. I mean, not that many, elite ones out there right now.
No doubt.
For sure. And you do have an elite one out there right now. So I think his market's going to be real high.
Well, as always, Johnny, we solved a whole lot of problems on Pitch and Moan.
We did. Right?
Well,
not a lot of games going on, a lot of action, a lot of rumblings. I'm excited for 2025. It's going to be awesome.
I am too. I really feel like we have seen the emergence of some really exciting young players that are all under 25. Certainly Paul Skeen's debut was huge. Jackson Churio, Jackson Merrill, Bobby Witt continuing his dominance, which has been a great story. It's very exciting for baseball right now. The ratings have never been better. We killed it in the playoffs and the World Series, all-time numbers, all-time records. I feel like baseball is in a really good position right now, and it's exciting to be a part of for sure.
Yeah, there's a whole new movement, of these young guys, and there's a whole movement of really good ball players, especially on the pitching side, leaving, right? We'll see if Kershaw comes back, Verlander, DeGrom, Scherzer. So I think there's a bunch of new sheriffs in town. Yep. This is a good time to be a baseball fan.
It is. And we will obviously be there every step of the way, as we always
are. Yes, absolutely. Pitching and moaning the whole way.
Pitching and moaning the whole way.
Yep.
Well, it's always a pleasure, Johnny. We will talk about these free agents once the first chip, the Juan Soto chip, falls. We'll be back to discuss it, but it's always a pleasure.
Domino effect. Here we go.
That's it. Thanks so much.
Gotcha.